Hi there everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So we're on the road. We do road work, we do mountain work, we do homework, we do God's work anywhere it flies up. So I was just listening to someone. First of all, let me say that we're on our way to a brand new place today. So Kate is out into some territory of discomfort that doesn't freak me out a whole lot. Fortunately, those places where I'm asked to grow my courage, that's not always been a place that was difficult for me to go into when it was something that I knew I had backing. I had terrible anxiety all the time when I was in uncomfortable situations where that's not asking me to stretch my boundary, that's asking me to go to someplace creepy. And finally having learned that it's not the courage factor, it's the am I needing to build my courage to go into some place that I don't belong. You know, maybe that anxiety is that I don't belong in that place I'm trying to be. So today we're going to Boulder, and that's out of my range for how far I usually am willing to drive. It's a little bit longer by a good stretch. So we're stretching boundaries today, and part of what came up as I was listening to someone is stretching boundaries even further with realizing that sometimes, you know, the boundary of security is to let go of familiarity, right? So the difference, this young woman was talking about the difference between being needed and wanted, and she touched on it. However, I want to go even further with it, that I was in a conversation, a Zoom call with a whole bunch of people that are in a spiritual community that I align with very nicely and very beautifully, and we were talking about, you know, somebody said, well, I want to be wanted, and it came up then. And so the fact that this young woman I was listening to this morning said it also, that for me the finer distinction in human language, we have so many nuances, and it really depends on not just the words that we use. The inflectious, the emphasis on the wrong syllable can make a difference. You know, so language out here can really twist up the heart language in here, the heart intention. And in this case, I'm going to say for me, it makes a huge difference whether somebody says they need me or they want me. There's a very big difference, and I know sometimes I've heard in the spiritual community that we don't want to tell the universe we want something because it has a sense of longing or pining, and you know, whatever that philosophy is. I'm not talking about manifestation, I'm talking straight language, which is the way that we manifest, so take this as you will. But when I hear somebody talking about they want to be wanted, they need to be needed, or they need to be wanted, I mean, however they're putting it out there, that when I need a glass of water, that means my body is dehydrated. I'm right slam on the edge of death. If I don't get me some water, I'm so dehydrated that I need this to survive. I absolutely need it to survive. Versus, man, I'm kind of thirsty. I just want a glass of water to quench that thirst. Either way, I'm doing myself a big old favor if I find my own water source to take care of that and get to the point that, you know, I'm just, when the minute I feel my thirst needed to be quenched, satisfy that immediately so that I don't need it immediately, that I'm on the verge of death. So with other people though, when we're in relationships and somebody starts getting overly attached with me and they start, you know, blowing sunshine and doing all kinds of things, you know, that sound kind of disingenuous or whatever, or I start to pull away, because that's my natural tendency when people get too clingy with me at this point, because I used to be very, very, very codependent and meshed with people horribly, giving and receiving enmeshment. We were just one big, giant, unhealthy, toxic blob that was, it was painful to separate from. And so I'm very careful about how I align with people now and how I let them get into my space, you know, and how I do not take their space. That I'm very conscious of that stuff, because that's the problem, you know, with that old paradigm. And exactly what we're breaking out of is, we all have to have our own spirituality, sovereignty, our own spiritual sovereignty, our own energetic sovereignty, which will clean up all those boundaries out here. And the more that we language that correctly, and the more that we really stand in that correctly, it'll get easier, and there'll be less feelings hurt and less blood hurt. However, we're all responsible for providing our own water at whatever level that we need that dehydration issue taken care of. And it's not my responsibility to, you know, give someone else my water. I can share my water sometimes. However, if I'm in a space where I'm unlimited supply, then that's how that's got to fly. And we're all responsible as sovereign beings in the new age and the age of Aquarius, and the perception changing, the shift, the paradigm shift, however you understand that, that responsible for providing my own living water, you know, and even though I might be able to give someone a sip from my well, I'm still not going to be able to provide that for someone long term, and it's not going to keep them alive. That's like trying to give somebody CPR for the rest of their lives. You know, it doesn't work. CPR providers, anybody that's ever rendered CPR to someone, you know, in a hurry, that this doesn't last long. I can do this for about 5 minutes before we're going to need to switch out, because it's very laborious. And I look at it the same way in those very enmeshed, unhealthy, toxic, and codependent relationships. I'm not saying people are bad, you know, hell, I used to be all deep in it. It's just, it is bad for us. We don't ever acquire our own sovereignty if we're never kicked out of that energy to go find it for ourselves. And so I'm very careful in those relationships now, in not supporting that kind of behavior and not asking to get involved in it from my end. That the minute that little red flag starts going off of, ooh, I feel like I really need to hear from this person, or I really need to, you know, see them, or need them to behave in a certain way, that, ooh, that's a red flag. Kate, sit down, because nope, that's not okay. What in me thinks I need that person to do something, and when I hear that fly in my direction, oh, you don't need me, you need you. However, you don't need me. And that's not the cutoff point necessarily. It goes into some nuances, and it's all about nuances in that heart language, and what a person is willing to do to understand that I'm really not the source for you, you know, and you aren't for me. If they're open to those conversations and they can hear that and understand and know, then we can continue to grow, both of us, because I have my deficiencies the same as everyone else. It's just, why in the world, if I've cleared out a whole bunch of debt off my credit card and I don't really need to use my credit card like that anymore, then why would I acquire more debt, especially if I'm carrying some still? If I'm struggling to pay my bill, as it were, I'm sure as hell not going to, or I ever have struggled to pay my bill. Those are big credit expenditures when we start getting into toxic relationships again. If we've healed out of them, or away from them, or made very clear boundaries, it can be a little bit weird. It can be a little gangly and uncomfortable, perhaps, to be foraying into new areas with people of, I'm not really sure how this is going. However, I take those credit hits real carefully, that someone who's coming at me in a toxic way, it might be that I'm there, you know, to learn something. It might be there that I'm to learn the boundary of no way. It might be that as a healer, starseeds, light workers, people that work in that vein of thinking, that it might be that we're called there to really help that person see themselves in a very kind and loving way, because we can't do that. And it becomes very quickly for me that there's just a cutoff point, that if people are teachable, they're reachable, and if they're not, then that's not an unkindness for me to leave. As a matter of fact, it's an unkindness for me to sit there and try to convince someone, cajole someone, push someone, or whatever it would be, any form of manipulation or rearranging the energy. I need to rearrange the energy in me to believe that I'm there to save anybody, because I have water for myself, and if I start believing that I'm the healing life, you know, and the healing water for other people, whoops, I've misstepped, and I've gotten into my ego for way too long, that I need to take a seat and, you know, allow other people to their sovereignty to know that no matter how pathetic it looks out here, I need you. No matter how pathetic it might look out here, or how pathetic, pardon me, I've ever felt, the truth is that holy grail moment is the very one when we learn right straight up and honest that come to Jesus meet, and there's only just me and my Jesus experience, or whatever you call that, your house, that only had me and my divinity. That was it. There wasn't anybody else, no matter how pathetic it was looking out here. And it did. It looked terrible. It was awful. Looked incredibly small, diminutive, and nearly dead, because it was. However, I was hanging on tight to the belief that I needed people out here to agree with me, to love me, to show me that they love me, to tell me that they love me. And they weren't willing to do that the way that I thought they needed to, or that they should. And it came as quite a shock to realize that, Kate, that's not about finding anybody. It's that you're come to Jesus meeting. Do you see any of those people here? Are any of those people here? No, it's just you and all of us up here in divinity. And we've been bending your ear for a minute. And, you know, we're sorry that you had to take it to that level, that you weren't understanding that codependency is not where it's at. You continuing to look outside of you of what you think you need, what are you getting? Because all of those situations were very toxic. Were you getting your needs met? And the answer was no, not really, not ultimately. I live healthier and in a better state of being in my physicality, my emotionality, my mentality, my finances, and my spirituality, because in not looking out here to have somebody be the living water for me. If I'm thirsty, I take care of hydrating myself, and if I get so dehydrated that I'm nearly dead, then I have another come to Jesus moment where I start talking to my spirit and saying, all right, what is it in my higher mind, my higher heart, my higher self, my divinity, my spirit team, whatever you bag that up and call that at your house, what is that I can make contact with that can hydrate me, and stop being angry out here that other people offer me something that didn't even taste good, that's not what I wanted, or it didn't really hydrate me. It's not meant to. We're not meant to be codependent with one another and enmeshed in each other's lives and energies the way that we have been. That is the old paradigm. So if we're called into the paradigm shift in the new earth, which we all are, we don't have a choice in that. We all live here. We're all going through this 11/11, and we're all experiencing the energy shifts. It's just causing some confusion because not all of us are consciously aware of the fact that we don't need another human being to get where we need to go in our spiritual sovereignty. As a matter of fact, no other person can get us there. However, we can certainly create dynamics where we're in healthier arrangements with people, we're in healthier relationships with people, where, you know, I might be thirsty one day and a person can offer me, you know, a kind word. They can offer me, you know, 1144. They can offer me some compassion. They can offer me forgiveness, and that will, in fact, absolutely be a beautiful, refreshing drink of water. However, if I'm looking to that to save me, yeah, that's really not where it is. I need to find the salvation, if you will. I need to be saved in the holy living water of universal energy, which is really where it's at. And however you back that up and call that at your house, you know, it's fine. Whatever works for you to understand it, but get there. It's not the language itself. Internally, it's the language of the heart that we use, and sometimes, you know, languaging out here gets a little frosty and froggy, and that's why I make the distinction very much so in my head, because I do need to have some sort of a framework so that my mind knows and my team can articulate through me that when I hear the language out here and people start talking about they need something from me, that turns into a different conversation, and I marry that up always with, no matter what anybody's saying, is how do I feel about what they're saying, and then I clean up my end of it so that I know where I stand with that, and then I can go out here much better with knowing just how dehydrated everybody is around me. Start out being real hydrated myself after I'm triggered, or after I'm having a minute of I don't know what that is. Let me take a sip of the living waters of the universe, baby, and I can go out here much better, you know, not already being thirsty as hell. So I hope that's helpful for you in some way, and I hope that you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And remember, get within your skin, because your divine is totally hydrated and totally beautiful, totally fine. And this person behind me won't let me in, but hey, I know my place on this planet. So take care of your beautiful selves, and I will see you again, friends. Bye.